Tom, could you please start with telling your story, how it happened, so that you, as a medical doctor, came to realize that there are big problems with the modern allopathic medicine?
Yeah, thanks, Kate. And I appreciate all you're doing to help, especially young people. I think that's really your area, niche in this. So it's really great what you're doing.
Thank you.
All I can say is I grew up thinking that I should be a doctor, but because a lot of my parents' friends were doctors and my father and grandfather were dentists, and I didn't really like it. I just thought there was something wrong. So I decided to try to do something else. But then I learned about that there was a different way to do medicine. And so that actually allowed me to go to medical school, because I couldn't go thinking I was going to be a sort of normal doctor. And I didn't really know much about it. I just knew there had to be something different. So, and that was 45 years ago or so. So I was always interested in finding out what was real and what wasn't real in biology and medicine and, everything, economics. And so I just kept looking my whole career, my whole life, to find out not only what is real, but how do you know when something is real? And that's sort of the interesting and maybe tricky part, because once you know how to know something, then it's much easier to figure out what's real and what isn't real. And I could give you an example of that, but and maybe I will. So what I discovered is that there's basically two ways of knowing what's real. One is you have a direct experience, right? Like, how do you know you have a hand? And I can tell by, I can see it and it does stuff. Like, I can pick up this pencil and I have a very direct experience of this. And that's a very good, reliable way of knowing about the world. The other way is there are things that you can't possibly know just through normal direct experience, right? And so then you have to do something we call science. The problem is when you do that, you have to make sure that whatever you're doing doesn't change what you're trying to find out. Like if I take this pencil and say, is this pencil real? And I burn it down into ashes and send it through an X-ray machine, I have to know that the burning it and the X-ray machine don't change what I'm looking at. And sometimes you can know that and sometimes you can't. And that's the problem in science and medicine, is they essentially forgot about that the methods determine what you find and even whether it's really there. So that's sort of how I've gone about doing this for 35, 40 years. Okay,
thank you so much, Tom. My next question for you is, how did you come to understand that the germ theory is false and that viruses do not exist and that contagion is a myth?
Yeah, I mean, so it's an interesting question, because if you go back to these two ways of knowing that I just said, most people would say, well, there is a phenomena of transmission of illness. In other words, I got sick and then my wife got sick and my children got sick, or the other way around, and then a whole bunch of people got sick. And so it looks like something is being spread from one person to another. So just from an experiential point of view, that seems real. The problem is, so I could give you an example of, so the principle of that theory is, if you see a bunch of people in the same place or animals getting sick in the same way, that means something is spread between them. And since you don't see anything, it must be something smaller than you can see, like a bacteria or even a virus. But if you think about that as a principle, like what about this example? Let's say you have a basement, you go to a new house, you have a basement, it's full of rats, and you don't know what to do, but a friend of yours, unbeknownst to you, comes and puts a bunch of rat poison down in your basement. Next day, you see 2 dead rats. Next day, you see 3 dead rats, and they all bleed to death. You can see it. Next day, 10 dead rats. Next day, 100, etc. Based on our original premise that if you see animals or people having the same symptoms one after another, that proves it's contagion. It must be that the rats have a virus or a bacteria. But clearly they don't. They've been poisoned by rat poison. And the fact of the matter is this mistake has been made many times throughout history, with everything from smallpox to pellagra and beriberi and scurvy. You know, one sailor after another got sick and their teeth fell out. They went into heart failure and died, and everybody thought it was some contagion, and they quarantined them and it didn't get better. And then somebody ate a lemon or a lime and the whole thing went away because turns out they had scurvy. So that convinced me that you can't tell based on just seeing what happens, that there may be a common toxin or a common psychological or emotional or something, or it may be that human beings communicate or animals communicate in unseen, unknown ways. And so if you want to find out whether it's a bacteria or a virus, you have to do a logical thing, which is take something from the person and isolate just the bacteria or the virus. Because the problem is some people say, well, if you get bitten by a rabid dog, right, and then you get rabies, that proves it's a virus. And so I asked them, are you telling me the only thing in the saliva of a rabid dog, and just assuming for a minute that that's actually true, which I actually have my doubts, but let's say it is true. Are you saying the only thing in the saliva of a rabid dog is a virus? I mean, that's ridiculous. There's enzymes and proteins and salivary juices, whatever they are, and the fear and everything else. So you can't say it's a virus unless you just take the virus out and then put that on the next person or animal in the same way, like not injected in their heart or something, but same way, and find out if they get rabies. So I spent years looking for this, and they never found a virus in any sick person, that's for sure. Not in any fluid did they find any particle you could call a virus. And because of that, they haven't isolated or removed the virus and shown that it causes disease. Now, with bacteria, you can find bacteria in sick people. Now, it turns out that some people have the bacteria and aren't sick, and some people who have the same sickness don't have the bacteria, which makes it suspicious that it's not the bacteria. But it is true, like with people with strep throat, some of them, maybe all of them, have this bacteria. But unfortunately, or fortunately, that doesn't prove the bacteria are causing the illness. Because just because something is there doesn't prove it's the cause. Like there's typically firemen at the scene of fires, but one can't say that proves the firemen caused the fires. And with the bacteria, you'd have to do the same thing, take the bacteria, isolate them so you don't have pus and all kind of salivary enzymes or whatever, and expose in a normal way to a person the bacteria alone and see if they get sick in the same way. And as far as I know, there's no study showing that. So it wasn't like some mystical belief that I had. I just looked at the evidence and I didn't care whether it was true or not. I mean, what difference does it make to me? If there's bacteria, then it's their bacteria. If there aren't causing disease, then they're not. And it turned out there weren't, and that the bacteria are there to eat dead and dying tissue, just like they do in nature. And the whole concept of a virus is a misconception. They're just dead and dying particles from decaying diseased tissue.